Here we have the oil filter sandwich adapter. This is what you can use to install an oil pressure gauge, an oil temperature gauge, and even an oil feed line for a turbo. Today we're going to be installing the oil pressure gauge and the oil temperature gauge to the RSX. First thing you have to do before working on anything electrical with the car is disconnect the battery. You can do this by disconnecting the negative side of the battery and just putting it off to the side. Now is a good time to change the oil because you do have to take the oil filter off. So that's what we're going to do today. Just underneath the vehicle, if you have a lift, great. If not, you can do this ramps, however you want to change the oil itself. Take out the drain plug. And the oil will come out accordingly. Once you have the oil all drained, you can go ahead and remove the oil filter. Use an oil filter wrench. Go ahead and just take out the old oil filter. Once you can get the oil filter loose, you can just remove it from the vehicle. Now you have room to work with the new oil filter sandwich adapter. Clean up the oil that leaked out from the oil filter itself using a rag, solvent, just to get it so it's clean and not dripping on you. And test fit your oil filter sandwich adapter to ensure that there is proper clearance for the senders up in the area. Once you get the center threaded piece tight, you can go ahead and adjust the adapter plate and completely snug up that fitting. If it seems like you have enough clearance, pull back out the sandwich adapter and you can go ahead and install the senders to the adapter itself. With the adapter plate, there's 3 ports. 1 on the side, 2 on the top. Comes with 2 plugs in case you don't use all the ports. We're going to use 2 of the ports today, one for the oil pressure and the oil temperature. What we're going to do is we're going to remove one of the top ports, put it off to the side. On the senders, you must use Teflon tape on the threads in order to seal it. Otherwise, there is potential for the oil to leak through the threads itself. Wrap a couple layers around the threads and just rub tightly. Do the same thing with the last plug in order to plug the last hole. Ensure to use Teflon tape for that thread as well. Once you get everything taped up, you can start threading everything in. Secure everything with a wrench to make sure that it's tight and will not leak. Once the plate is installed on the vehicle, retighten everything, make sure that it is tight with a solid connection on the engine block itself. When you get ready to install the oil filter sandwich adapter to the engine block, take a little bit of oil, lube up the O-ring just as you would for an oil filter. Fit the oil adapter up into the engine block area and adjust the plate as needed in order to fit both senders. Once it's up there, if you don't have enough clearance for a sender, it may be necessary to remove the plate and adjust them accordingly. When installing the oil adapter plate, you want to make sure that it is tight but not over tight. You just want to go snug just like you would with an oil filter. Sometimes it's a little hard to get in there to reach it and snug it up. You can use a wrench, just make sure not to over tighten it because it can split the gasket and will create an oil leak. Once you get the oil adapter plate up in place, you can reinstall the oil filter. Make sure to take some oil, grease the gasket as you did on the oil adapter plate, and put it up into position. Just hand tight and snug it up a little bit so that you don't split the gasket but it doesn't leak oil. And the oil filter sandwich adapter is installed. Once you get the car on the ground after installing the oil filter sandwich adapter, you want to make sure that you fill back up the oil if you did remove it, or just check your oil level. We're going to put oil back into the vehicle. Make sure you fill it up to factory specifications and just double check because you did add things to the system, so it may take a little bit more oil. You want to put the lid back on. reconnect the negative side of the battery, and then start the vehicle to cycle through so it gets through the oil filter and check the oil level. Wipe off the dipstick. Check the dipstick and it should be at operating level. You have now successfully completed installing the oil filter sandwich adapter.